Crap, I got a fart.
What's up, Ring the Damn? Welcome to Ring the Damn Bell. My name is KG, and with me is my co-host, the wrestling enthusiast, Mark. I really hope I hope that they caught that last little bit before, right as the podcast was going live with
Shut up.
Anyway, guys, real quick before we get into the review of mainly AEW's pay-per-view last night, Double or Nothing. We're going to briefly touch on Saturday Night Main Event. But before we do that, tomorrow live on YouTube only at 6 p.m. Central, I have Patrick Tanaka on. He is a former New Japan Pro Wrestler, a New Japan Pro Wrestling talent. He also went on to Jim Crockett Promotions, the Continental Wrestling Association, AWA, WWE, ECW, WCW, and as well as various independent promotions. A true legend within this industry. This will be a must watch. Also on the 28th, guys, I have a gentleman by the name of Kurt DeBoer coming on. He was a professional wrestler, had many years as a professional wrestler who has been diagnosed with only 12 months to live. For whatever reason, he chose this podcast to come on to kind of tell his story. So please join us for that. And then on the 30th, we have Terry Zeller, a great guy, friend of mine. He's a former WWE talent as well. So I have some really good stuff coming up for you guys. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's get into it, man. So briefly, Saturday Night Main Event. Most of it was decent. I really don't have a whole lot of complaints. It's the main event that the way it ended, just it didn't make sense to me. You had the match between Uso and I always forget his YouTube guy. Mark, help me with his name again. His name's my mind.
Logan Paul.
Logan Paul, thank you. Uso and Logan Paul. The issue that I have with the way it ended was you had John Cena come in to attack Uso, which then the is a disqualification at that point. Logan Paul technically wins the match, but he doesn't get the belt. And then Cody Rhodes comes in to help make the save. And it was announced that Cody and Uso and Logan Paul and John Cena is going to have a tag team match at their next PLE, which is Money in the Bank. This is why it doesn't make sense to me. John Cena literally cost Logan Paul possibly that title. And instead of Logan Paul being pissed off, oh, well, I'm going to join you. We're going to be teammates, John Cena. That doesn't make sense. And matter of fact, when John Cena first came in and attacked Uso, the look that Logan Paul was giving John Cena, I even told my wife, I said, shit, are we about to see a program with Logan Paul and John Cena against one another because of this? Nope. Instead, they're putting them together. Mark, am I just being too much of a complainer, or am I right with this, that this just doesn't make sense?
Well, you're right to a degree, but I think it was just a good way to bring Cody back into the mix of things, to be honest. If I was Logan Paul, yeah, I'd be a bit put out, and I think you're going to see that in some promo either tonight or tomorrow or Friday or whatever. But as far as Logan Paul, as long as his name's on the upper echelon, I think he's okay.
And this is about the fans. A lot of people, a lot of wrestling fans have been complaining about Jesse Ventura, spe- specifically complaining that he is too out of touch because he didn't even know that Damian Priest could walk out the cage and win the match. That's not the case, guys. I assure you, Ventura knew this. A lot of you wrestling fans, you don't either remember or you don't know that Ventura has always been a heel on color commentary. He was playing that heel part. Colin Damian Priest, basically a coward, taking the easy way out. He shouldn't make that. He shouldn't get that win by walking out of the door. It was all kayfabe. Again, Jesse Ventura, he's aware of the rules with cage matches. So just calm down. Because again, I know you guys don't like kayfabe these days, but that's exactly what that was. You have any?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, no, that's just Jesse playing Jesse. Now, do I think Jesse's as good as he once was?
No.
No, God, no. But Jesse's Jesse, and I'm not gonna take anything away from what he's done in the ring or or color commentary. Jesse did very well on both aspects of it. Um, do I think he's slipping gears? Yeah, the guy's like what, 75 years old? Yeah,
Mhm.
he's probably slipping gears. Um, but again, Jesse's been a formidable force in wrestling for barring the last 10, 15 years, maybe even 20 years, for probably 20 years before that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Enough of that. Let's get into AEW's pay per view, Double or Nothing.
all right. So the first match starts out with, which I was surprised, with Monet versus Jamie Hayter. As much as I want to pick on um, Monet and her lack of ability and believing her own hype, this was probably one of the best matches of the night. Um, the one thing I can say about Monet is she can sell disappointment better than anybody, you know. And but there's a lot of good moves in this match. There's a lot of ups and downs in this match. Um, Ultimately, she got the win, which I was disappointed in. But I for me, it's always been a question of it's not when she was a world champion, it's or if it was when.
Mhm.
You know, I think that was the main thing that was really tied her into going to AEW is they guaranteed her that world title. You know, and I guess in her position, I wouldn't have gone to him without it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, man, I look, I agree with everything that you said. I'm not a huge Monet fan, because of I think she does believe her own hype, but then again, she is a heel. We're not supposed to like her.
right,
But that match last night, when this was the first match, I was like, ugh, I really didn't think that I was going to like this match. Man,
right.
Monet keeps on proving us wrong, whether we like it or not, because it seems like her matches, especially on these pay per views, gets better and better and better. And my God, last night, her and Jamie Hayter, man, they absolutely deserve an
Right,
applause,
right.
because it was phenomenal. And after that match ended, my exact words to Mark, because he was over here, we watched it together, was Jesus Christ, they set a high, high bar for these
They
other
did. They
matches.
absolutely did. They
Yep.
absolutely did. And props to Jamie Hayter. She put on a good match. You know, um, but is it really going to sway my opinion about Monet? No, but it kind of makes me appreciate her abilities more, you know. Um, and you can say what you want, but to me, Monet, and I've said this before, I think every time she won a world champion in WWE, she lost at the next pay per view. So I don't know what their line of thought was, to appease her for one pay per view. That's kind of pointless to me. To strip that title away four times from her, you know, at the next pay per view, really is a discredit to her ability. Um, but like I said, her personality wise just leaves me flat. And again, she's a heel, so maybe she's supposed to, you know. But as far as her in ring ability, yeah, it's my expectations raised.
Yeah, and I tell you what though, if WWE ever wants her back, oh, they're gonna be paying her a lot more money than what they were paying her before. You can bet your ass on that.
Yeah, but you know what? The thing about WWE is they're not going to slight some of their current roster like Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and whatnot. So I mean, that's going to be a hard cross to bear for Sasha. Sasha will. The only way Sasha will make up the difference is by merchandise.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, they're not going to sign her for more than Charlotte or Becky. You know.
Yeah, at least not yet. I mean, I think
Well,
Charlotte. I think within the next few years, Charlotte's going to be going.
yeah, Charlotte's
Um,
not going to make it to
I,
45.
I and I don't think Becky Lynch is going to stay in the business more than another 5 years either, because I think that being a mom is much more important to her than her wrestling career.
Yep.
And once their daughter gets to the age of school and stuff like that, I see Becky Lynch retiring in the next 5 years.
Yeah. Well, retiring or a really severely
Right.
limited schedule.
Schedule. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But that's still not going to change the fact that, even in 4 or 5 years, Monet is not going to command a Charlotte Flair salary. I don't think, but
We'll
who
see what
knows?
happens in 5. Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
see what happens in 5 years though. I mean, she could be the next best thing in women in the women's division. Then better than what they have at that point in WWE. So it
Yeah.
just depends on how badly WWE needs someone like her to come into their side of the business.
Right. 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 So, all right. So next we go to FTR versus Daniel Garcia and Nigel McGuinness. This was a better match than I thought, and Kevin didn't have high hopes for this one because Nigel, he just thought Nigel was just too washed up, but Nigel really held his own, and his chest looked like raw meat after FTR got done with him. And that was the first 10 minutes, I think. Not
Yeah.
even the first 5 minutes. Nigel performed very well.
Mhm.
Daniels Garcia always puts on a good show, I think. FTR, I like him. I don't like him as much as I used to, but I like him. I got nothing but respect for these guys. These guys, I think, always go out there and give it their all.
Yeah. I definitely ate my words last night when it comes to Nigel. He was very impressive. Like you said, Garcia's Garcia. You know that he's going to put everything out there every time he's in a match. FTR last night looked better than they have in a very long time. I think turning them heel has given them kind of that second wind, if you will, because they were really just as baby faces. I think the fans were tired of them. I think that FTR was tired as well of being baby faces. And being this new heel, I definitely think that this gave him new life. And I think we seen that last night in this match. This was one of their better matches I've seen in quite a while, to be honest with you.
Yeah, yeah, it was. I was really expecting some sort of run in, to help Nigel and Daniel Garcia, Edge or whoever else.
Yep.
Um, but it didn't happen. But I was really expecting it. Although Daddy Magic got involved a little bit.
Yeah, but look, I think that their next pay per view, which is kind of their big one, their WrestleMania, if you will.
No, this one's
Um,
supposed to be the WrestleMania because this is the one that kicked it all off for
yeah,
AEW.
it should have been, but for whatever reason, it's their next pay per view. I think that there's a strong possibility that we'll see Edge make his comeback. Um,
The other thing we need to point out on this pay per view is they had a pretty stacked crowd. You
yeah,
know, now it wasn't a WWE crowd, but it was probably 8 to 10,000. I
yep,
thought,
yep, yep,
you know,
yep. Decent crowd. They make noise at times. Their chants, "This is awesome," and things like that. What was kind of their energy, but they weren't as energetic as I would have hoped that
right.
they would
And
be.
I pointed out last night that the crowd was kind of
Yeah,
lackluster.
yep. Now I'll be honest. I'm nervous for AEW for their next pay per view because unless something's changed, it's going to be in a stadium, I believe. And I don't know how many tickets they sold. They haven't checked in, but considering that it's in
It's a
Texas,
40,000 seat easily. You
yeah,
know, 'cause isn't that the same one they had David Von Erich's
Von
memorial?
Erich.
You
Yep,
know, so
yep,
and I think that was what 47 or 48,000.
yep. And
You know,
that's with standing room only. So I'm nervous for AEW. I hope they do well. I hope they sell the stadium out. But as of yet, it's not. It's not been sold out. So we'll see what's going to happen.
yep,
I really think that if they don't fill the stadium up, they should, for this one stadium pay per view that they do, they should really go to these other countries where they don't have wrestling very much. Kind of like what happened in England. They're the very
yep,
first time they were there, and I mean, they set a record. So I think that maybe if they're gonna do stadium shows, they should stick to leaving the country.
yeah. Um, you know, it's tough to say, but I was pleasantly surprised at the crowd they had last night.
Yep.
You know, it really didn't look like there's too many empty seats at all, to be honest.
Yep. But
Um,
Marty, there's a difference between selling an $8,000 to $10,000 smaller venue versus a $40,000 venue. I mean, a
right,
forty
but
thousand seat venue, because if you take that same 8 to 9 thousand people and put them in that venue where it's maximum 40, 50,000 people, it's gonna seem like there's no one there.
right, yeah, I know, I understand that. Um, you know, I think from a marketing point of view, at worst case scenario, I'd give tickets away. You know,
At some
just
point,
to
they're gonna
fit.
have to.
You know, I mean, they'll make up some on concessions and whatnot, but you know, for the most part, and what these guys got to realize is they're just outpricing themselves. Not just AEW, WWE is doing the same thing, and I'm hoping it helps the independent scene because you know people that want to see wrestling, but you know don't want to afford $1,200 for a ticket. You know,
$1,200. WWE has this a seat for at SummerSlam, 40 fucking $1,000.
yeah,
Are
no,
you kidding me?
that's asinine. You know, I mean, yeah, that's great to get your celebrity in there. You know, your P Diddy's or whoever. I don't care.
Did he
You know,
really?
I
You gonna-
it's the first name that came to mind. It was the first name that came to mind. You know,
Wow.
but I mean, how many people are they going to draw or bring in with them? You know, I mean, come on.
Look, wait. I got to go back to this. Look, if you can bring P. Diddy in, then you also need to bring in R. Kelly, you know, and because
Weinstein.
Weinstein, what the fuck? I can't believe you went there, P. Diddy.
Like I said, it was the first name that came to mind. I couldn't think of anybody that was famous and popular.
Oh.
So, all right. So, anyways, next we go to Ricochet versus Mark Briscoe in a stretcher match. You know, this match was probably a little bit better than I thought it would be, and that's mainly because there was color, but ultimately it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be.
No, and I have a problem personally, and Ricochet's good, guys. I'm not shitting on Ricochet. I'm really not. But when you compare the characters of who's the guy that's used to bloody matches, that's supposed to be, the badass when it came to these type of matches, that would be Briscoe. So I was disappointed that Ricochet actually won this match, because I feel like because of the match it was, the kind of matches it was, the gimmick, the stretcher match, that it should have been um
Mark
Briscoe.
Briscoe,
Yep, Mark Briscoe
right?
to
But you got to look
win
at it
this
this
match,
way,
because you even said, oh, Briscoe's going to win this match. Absolutely, at one point.
right? But you got to keep in mind who's going to lose more in losing the match. Ricochet is going to lose a whole lot more face than Mark Briscoe. You know,
I think that if it was a standard, normal, technical match, I would agree with you. But because of the type of match it was, I don't think it would have hurt Ricochet to lose the match. And you kind of have to look at it from the other side. Who needs to win more right now, Briscoe or Ricochet? That has to be Briscoe, because he's taking L's all the time.
I don't know. To me, Mark Briscoe's, a one-off. I win or lose, people are still going to like him, cheer for him. Now unless he falls off the deep end and turns heel, you know, and becomes more brutal than what he is sometimes. Um, I think people are going to like him regardless. Mark Briscoe really is an underrated wrestler. You could sit there and say he's a brawler all day long, but this guy can actually wrestle, you
Yep.
know, and they need to highlight it a little bit more, because he is actually one of probably the top 50 guys in wrestling, to be honest, as
Yep.
far as ability to wrestle, I
Yeah.
think.
No, I agree. I
So,
agree.
all right. So next we go to Hurt Syndicate versus Dustin and Sammy. Now, when it comes to this, anytime Dustin's in the ring, I got nothing but respect for the guy, and he throws probably the best punch in the business, bar none. You know, it looks good, it
Bob
sounds good.
Cook. Bob Cook. That's Mark saying it, not me.
Why Bob Cook disputed?
Bob Cook is known for throwing the best punch in the business.
Well, when Bob Cook gets a name like Dustin, then we'll argue it. Sorry, Bob. Sorry, Bob. You're just not as big as Dustin.
Man,
I know Bob's
man,
gonna kill me.
I'm about to fire your ass. Talking about our co-host, like Bob, I think you are as big as Dustin. You are a legend, a Hall of Famer. Is Dustin a Hall of Famer? No, he's not. So eat that fucking mark.
Way to save face, Kevin. Way to save face. Um, no, Dustin's got the best punch. I'm sorry, he does. Nothing against Bob, but Dustin's got the best punch. As far as active wrestlers, and Bob's semi-active.
I can't wait to Tuesday night's podcast now.
You're implying that Bob's actually gonna watch this podcast.
He does at times. He comments on them. He sends me DMs.
Every now and then, though, and of course, I know you're gonna bring it up to Bob anyhow. So,
But yeah, I am.
way to cook my ass. Thanks, appreciate it.
Anytime I can throw your ass under the bus, I do so. It's
I
done with
know.
love. Done with love.
I know. So, anyways, this match, I was hoping for better, but it just left me kind of cold, to be honest.
I didn't think it was terrible. It was my least favorite match of the pay per view. I do though applaud them for making the right decision and having Sammy take the L. I mean, I know they both took the L, right? Him and Dustin, but Sammy's the one that was pinned. I think that was the right call, because Dustin could absolutely fight with Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley, and handle his own. In reality, it would be Sammy that would fall short in a fight like that between
Yeah.
those two guys.
We
So
talked about Sammy, and who else did we talk about last night?
Perry.
Yeah, I mean, these guys both just lack that 15 pounds, 20 pounds of size to make them
Oh
formidable.
no, we were talking about Daniel Garcia. As
Right?
good as
Yeah.
Daniel Garcia is, man, if he gained 15 pounds or so in muscle, I mean, I think that he would look a lot better and maybe could go a lot further.
Yeah, because I mean, while these guys are probably, well, they're able to kick my ass without a second thought. Um,
My
but they
wife kicked
aren't
his ass,
viable.
man.
Yeah, I know. But they're not viable as being intimidating or
Right.
imposing. And I'm not looking for them to be, like Randy Savage at 235. Randy Savage at 235 looked like he was 250, you
Right.
know.
Right.
Um,
Right. Now, it is important to say that this is actually the first loss that Dustin and Sammy has
I've
had
taken,
just taken as a team.
yeah,
Right.
And of course Dustin holds the trios with the Von Erichs, which we haven't seen since they won the belts, you know. I'm sure you'll see him in the next preview in Texas,
Yeah.
but you
And
know,
Dustin and Sammy has the ROH tag team champion.
right. But I mean, what I'm getting at is, you know, these guys are legacy. I mean, the Von Erichs are legends, literal legends, especially in Texas. You
Yeah.
know, and I don't know why these guys aren't further along than what they are.
Well, I'm sure that Dustin is using the Von Erichs, because he has his own promotion. And matter of fact, I'm not sure how many shows they've done. I just know that their very first show that they put on sold out in Texas. So I would be willing to bet. I don't know what the card was, but I'd be willing to bet that Divine Erics was on that card.
Oh yeah, but I mean, you got to look at Texas. You go to
Right.
San Antonio, Dallas, Dallas Fort Worth. I mean, um, I mean, if you're trying to pack 5,000 seats, it'd be almost impossible not to pack that. You
Right.
know, but I
Yeah.
mean, are they packing 10, 12, 14? I don't think so. But I hope they do. Because I
Yep.
think Dustin deserves every accolade he gets. You
Yeah.
know,
As big of a legend as the name Von Erichs are in Texas, I don't think that it carries through into
no,
other places as well, especially because you got to remember, man, the Von Erich legend was back in the 80s, really in the early 90s. And, today's wrestling fan, they're not like the wrestling fans of yesteryear that you and I belong to that actually knew the history. We love wrestling so much that we read about the history of professional wrestling, or we've had access to old matches. A lot of today's wrestling fans, they don't, and for whatever reason, they don't know the whole history of professional wrestling and a lot of those names. If it wouldn't be for the movie that came out, the Claw, whatever it was called, which by the way, what they did with the Von Erichs, I will never watch that movie again. But nonetheless, I don't know if the Von Erich name would even be remembered by today's wrestling fan.
well, I think in the southern states,
The
even
Iron
as far
Claw.
as yeah, even in like New Mexico, Arizona. But I think once you get past Kansas, yeah, I mean, yeah, they had a brief stint. Kerry had a brief stint in WWE, and they had a working relationship or a merger with AWA at one time. I think it was.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, and at that point, AWA was on its way out. As far as today's fans, I guess it depends on when you get introduced to wrestling. Because I have a nephew that's probably been watching wrestling since he was 5, 6 years old, and he was talking about Eddie Guerrero, and Eddie Guerrero had been dead for, you know, 10 years easily by the time he started watching it.
Right.
So I mean, he does do some background investigation for being a kid. Now does he know anything about the Von Erichs? No, I'll have to ask him about it. You
But
know,
this is the thing, Mark, and I'm not disagreeing with you, right? But you also have to remember that it's the amount of history, the history that these fans will go back to is everything WWE. What I'm
right,
saying is they don't really understand the history beyond WWE. They don't understand that if it wasn't for people like the um Von Erichs, for even Bob Cooks and the Monkey Brothers and all of that talent back then, the Ric Flairs, the Four Horsemen's, WWE wouldn't be what it is today because all those guys made the path for today's talent to go there.
right.
So when I say that the fans don't really know the history of professional wrestling, I should correct myself by saying the history past WWE, even the Attitude Era, really. I'd be willing to bet if you ask most fans, what do they know about professional wrestling prior to the Attitude Era? Most of them, a good bit of them, would say nothing.
Well, the thing is, we had to actively investigate the history. I told you the story about my brother-in-law being a wrestling fan 5, 7 years before I was, and going to babysit my nephew. He brought out his stacks of old magazines, and I literally spent probably 100 hours reading these magazines. You
But
know,
you just you
and
go ahead,
and
go ahead.
I was exposed to people I'd never even heard of before. You
That
know,
that's the- but Mark, that's exactly what I was going to say. Our generation, right? We didn't have the internet, YouTube, none of that shit. So we relied on those magazines.
right?
And I bought these magazines faithfully every week. Sometimes the proper way, sometimes what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah,
But my but this is the thing though. In these magazines, they didn't just talk about your Mid South or your WWE.
right,
They
right,
covered everything, all of the territories, right? So
right.
we were educated by getting these magazines. We realized what else was out there. the other legends. And yes, today's fans, they could just simply go type something in on the internet and be exposed to it. They don't. It's all WWE. And I don't blame the fans for that, because this generation, all they know is WWE, because that's all there was is WWE in their
Right.
world,
Right.
and now AEW.
You know, one of the biggest stories that I never was exposed to until I saw these magazines was Larry Zabisco turning on Bruno Sammartino, and that was akin to probably Savage and Hogan breaking up or something. I don't know, but I was never exposed to that. And to be honest, I don't. I knew Larry Zabisco from AWA, but I never knew he was in WWE at the time or at one time. Um, so, and another thing was that was probably the biggest tragedy at the time, and I think I bought the magazine. I don't have it anymore, but it was the picture of Magnum TA's Porsche. You know,
It's funny that you brought that up, because there was a question on it's called the Wrestling Locker Room. It is a Facebook community. Um, and if you guys are on social media on Facebook, go look for it. Mike Shields is amazing. It's probably one of the best wrestling groups out there. But anyway, the question was asked: if Jim Crockett Jr. would have ran WCW instead of Jim Herd, would it have survived? Now, this was my answer. My answer was yes. And I'll tell you why.
well,
If
hold on.
Jim,
First of all, it wasn't WCW. It was NWA. Hurt
well,
took over for
well,
WCW.
right, but it went to WCW, right?
Right.
But this is the thing: if Crockett was never sold to Ted Turner, then we would have never had the AOL merger, which had a hand in destroying WCW. And I say a hand because WCW was also doing shit themselves to destroy it, right? With but with AOL not wanting professional wrestling on their channel, that didn't help WCW a whole lot. Now, I also said that if Magnum TA would have never gotten into that accident, and you had Jim Crockett still running the NWA and the WC that went to WCW, that not only would we still have WCW, although TA would good possibility be retired by now, the WWE would not be the force that it is today. So there's so many ifs and so many things that happened that really slanted the hand to help WCW within professional history. Because if a lot of those things would have never happened, again, WCW, they'd still be here, they'd still be pretty big, but they wouldn't be that giant that they are today.
WWE. You mean?
I mean, WWE, yeah.
Um, I don't know. Crockett's had a pretty good name in wrestling, all right, and so did McMahon's. But I think Vince's resolve to do what he did, I I'd be hard pressed to say that Vince eventually wouldn't have won. Um,
Maybe, but this is the thing that a lot of people, and I know you've had to thought about this because we've had this conversation. The thing is this, though: Magnum TA would have been, I dare to say, and I don't care, people could disagree with me. Magnum TA would have been as a big of a star as Hulk Hogan, and I think that having a Magnum TA, with the major pay per view that Dusty Rhodes created, which was
Starcade.
Starcade, I think that Starcade, if they went head to head with WrestleMania, the first couple of WrestleManias, I think that, I'm not saying Starcade would have beat them, but Starcade would have definitely taken away a lot of their steam.
Yeah,
Um,
no, um, you're right. They wouldn't have beat them, I don't think, but they take a lot of the way of steam because you got to look at the population in the North versus the South. There's more population in the North than the
right.
South. So I mean, as Vince is clearing the upper half, and NWA can clear the lower half, ultimately, I think Vince would have won. I think Vince's resolve was second to none, and I don't know if the Crockett's had that kind of resolve.
Yeah, but
You
this
know,
is the thing. Vince McMahon didn't have that much money, man. Vince McMahon had to take out a loan against his home twice.
two
Yeah,
two
two
loans,
loans. Right, two loans, right? So you got to figure with a Magnum TA and a Starcade going against a
Ric
WrestleMania,
Flair.
with Ric Flair as well, you and taking a lot of the steam away, even if they wouldn't have beat WrestleMania, just taking that steam away from them and taking a lot of those people,
Yeah,
that could have very well hurt Vince McMahon to the point that he wouldn't have made the money he did to eventually go on to
yeah.
have the
Well,
mega giant.
we could sit and argue
We
or
can.
discuss what ifs all day long.
It's interesting though, man. It's fun to talk about, especially whenever you come from that fan base of that Southern wrestling, the Mid South, and the Georgia Championship wrestling and stuff like that. So, but you're right. We can talk about this all night long.
And that's
But
another promotion that sold out too soon too, because some guys from Mid South to UWF were hot as hell. And if they would have merged with WCCW at the time, oh my God, I think
yep,
them guys would have been a fort. I think they would have gave everybody a run for the money.
yep,
You
I
know,
agree. But let's get back to
I
AEW. Go ahead.
oh hold on, man, I was still on my UWF rant here.
Go
You know,
ahead.
I watched that. I remember watching that for the first time and just was in shock, and my jaw just dropped. I'm like, holy shit, this is awesome. And it's not like they had the hugest names, because even the Freebirds weren't that well known, I don't think. um, but Terry Bam Bam Gordy is the champion, Dr. Steve Williams, Ted DiBiase, Terry Taylor. I mean, they had a solid, Jim Duggan, they
Yep,
had a solid foundation. I don't even know if
yep.
Junkyard Dog was in there. Well, he was in Mid South, but he
He
wasn't
was
in.
in.
I don't
Yep,
think. Yeah, I don't think
yep.
he was in the UWF though.
Yeah, and you mentioned a group of names. I mean, look, you want to talk about a major hill faction with Skandar Akbar, the Rat Pack, which
Yeah, I
which
forgot about
which
some
which
guys.
which was Ted DiBiase, believe it or not, Hacksaw Jim Duggan until he turned into that major baby face. But all those guys that was in there, I mean, that was a force to be reckoned with. And yeah,
You
what
know,
could
that
have
was
been.
that was NWO before NWO,
Hmm.
because some guys came out every week and beat the piss out of somebody.
Oh well,
Yeah,
look, man, the Mid South and the UWF and the Georgia Championship Wrestling, that was the Attitude Era before the Attitude Era
right, exactly,
because they
exactly.
weren't using cartoon gimmicks. The biggest the only gimmicks they really had was your Abdullah, your Butcher, your Kamala, and the
Brody.
he spit green mist out of his mouth. Kabuki.
Oh, Kabuki. Yeah.
Right. Those were and but even those characters, yeah, you can argue they're a little cartoonish, but they were very violent
Yes, they
characters,
were.
right? It
Yes, they
wasn't
were.
the superhero cartoon shit that WWE had at the time, which I'm not shitting on that because that's what their market loved. So, but nonetheless, we still had the first Attitude Era.
And not only that, but all them guys that you mentioned, Abdul the Butcher, Kamala, Kabuki, I never thought, I never think went to WWE. Them guys did not thrive in WWE because of their characters, because they were too
Violent.
bloodlust.
Yep.
Yeah, Terry Funk really didn't do well in WWE, you know, and
Not
it's
as
a
well as
shame,
he did in the South.
right? And it's a shame what they did to him with Chainsaw Charlie. I mean, Jesus Christ, that was just a spit on his face, you know. But it was a paycheck, and Terry is still a business guy and still needed to survive. So,
Right.
all right. So, anyways, where were we? We just did Hurt Syndicate, right? Yep.
Yep.
Okada versus Speedball. Now, this one left me lacking. Speedball is a great talent, but absolutely no personality. He makes Lance Storm look like fucking Hulk Hogan.
He does. And look, as we're talking about, as we're watching the match, we both don't like Speedball. We don't like his gimmick. But holy crap, his kicks are bar none. Has to be
Yep.
one of the best, if not the best kicks in professional wrestling right now.
Well, I think he was a former kickboxing champion or
Yeah,
something.
I
You know?
mean, the guy could go in the ring.
Yes, he
That
can.
that that's not even open for argument. He could wrestle. Um, but there's just something about him, and I think I'm speaking for Mark too. Just can't get behind him to be a fan.
And like I said, I mean, he shows me shades of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. And I know you disagree with this, but he's got a similar look. He's got a similar build. He's got a similar style, but he just does not have any personality.
No,
He-
remember
he-
when you
he-
remember when you said that he reminded you of Steamboat. What I said was, if he lost this goofy gimmick, I'd absolutely be able to see it.
yeah,
Absolutely be able to see it.
you know, he needs a mouthpiece and maybe even turn heel.
I look, if Speedball Bailey lost this goofy gimmick that he has, right? Um, I think that he could go on to be considered by the end of his career as one of the goats in professional wrestling. I will go that far to say, even though I don't like his character, I will say that about him because he could go in the ring 100%. Um, I mean, as good as is it Osaka?
Okada.
Okada, as good as Okada is in professional wrestling, he made Okada look like $1 million last night. He really did.
Yeah.
And I will give Speedball that credit. I just can't get behind him though, as far as being a huge fan of his because of the gimmick and the lack of personality. Maybe he does have personality, but the gimmick doesn't allow him to. I don't know.
Well,
But I agree with you. I think he needs a mouthpiece. I honestly believe I agree with you. If he turned heel and you put him with a Don Callis, I think that you could actually have a great talent. And you know what I just thought of? And I don't see if you agree with me or not. So, because you brought Ricky Steamboat, one of the greatest rivalries in professional wrestling was Steamboat and Flair. Are we in agreement?
why is it a robbery?
I said no
Oh,
rivalry.
rivalry.
Yes,
Oh,
rivalry.
oh yeah. Bar
Okay.
none. Bar none.
Now think about this. You change Speedball's gimmick, you put him with a Don Callis, get him some real heat, and then you come up with a feud between him and the Hangman Adam Page we seen last night. That version of him. I'm not saying that feud would not be. I'm not saying that the feud would be as good as the Ric Flair and Steamboat. I don't think there could ever be a feud that's going to reach that level. But I think that would be an amazing feud that people would be talking about years from now.
uh,
And
that's
it
kind of
has
a
to
reach,
be,
I think.
it has to be the hang because look, the Hangman on Page we seen last night. Holy shit, man! Holy shit! It would have to be that Hangman Adam Page. Whatever he pulled out to compete in a match and to do what he did last night, we would have to have that from him.
Yeah, I don't know. That might be too much reach for me.
Nope, nope. I can see it. You know what else I can see? Your ass was frozen. There you are.
Yeah,
But
my
yeah,
hammer's
good
kind of
match
fast.
overall. Good match. I was happy with the win, with the direction they went in. So, you know, besides not liking his character, I appreciated what he did last night. I won't take that away from him. That was a good match.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. Overall, there were really a lot of good matches last night. All right, so Tony Storm versus Mina Shikawa. Again, this was a good match. I think Mina is underutilized. I don't think it's about her promos because she speaks fairly good English. But there's just something that she's not quite at that level yet, I think.
Well, I tell you what, man, and I mentioned this to you last night. Watching the match, I really thought Tony was dropping that title because last night Mina whipped her ass all around that ring. If she would have won that title, you could almost say that was close to being removing the time of the match. Squash matches are usually pretty short, right? They're not these long matches. removing the amount of time that this match went, if she would have won last night, you can almost say it was a squash match just because of Tony Storm not getting that much offense on her. I mean, Tony Storm had to pull her out the last minute to beat her.
You know, the only reason why I think Tony would have lost last night is because I don't think they want to see Tony lose to Monet because Tony's
Well,
such a hot
right.
prospect.
Well,
You
I'll
know,
be honest with. I'll be honest. I don't think that's happening. I think that for Monet to lose her first match and for her to be pinned for the first time on AEW, it has to be by somebody very special. I think Tony Storm's that person. I think Tony Storm is going to be the first one to beat Monet. Now, do I think Monet? Do I think that this may lead to a long storyline between the two with Monet eventually taking that title? I
Ellie there?
do. Yeah, can you see me?
Now I do.
All right.
You think Monet what?
I think that this is going to lead to maybe a little bit of a long storyline between Monet and Tony Storm. I believe that Monet will eventually take that title from her. I think that it's going to be backwards from what we're used to. We're used to the babyface chasing the heel. I mean the heel, right? Who has that title belt? And I don't think it's going to come across as much of a chase. I think Tony Storm's going to say, "Yeah, we can go." Um, but I don't think that she's going to take the belt this pay per view. Maybe the next one. Don't know.
Hmm. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see though. All right, so let me go to the Ops and Swerve versus Death Riders and the Bucks. Now,
Let me start.
this
Let me start with this shit. Let me tell you something. The first half of this match, they had great action. Don't take me wrong. But the whole music thing took away from it. And as far as I'm concerned, it made it garbage. The music thing was terrible. I don't know whose idea it is. I'm guessing it's probably the Bucks idea. Probably the other VP,
Omega.
uh Omega. It was terrible. I know you liked it. I love
Well,
metal. I love metal. It took away from the match and it was fucking terrible. And something else that was terrible, by the way, was the fucking Bucks entrance. What the literal fuck? It was stupid. It was dumb. Again, as I said last night, and I'll land my plane with this, and I'll let you talk.
what
If,
was? Oh,
hold on, real quick, let me finish this. Dynamite was actually getting better. Week by week, it was getting better. It started going downhill again once the fucking Bucks got back. Once the fucking Bucks started getting back in Tony Khan's ears, now we've seen Dynamite start to go down again. The Young Bucks need to stay out of creative and just be talent. Period. No more fucking music. It was dumb, especially the first song they played.
which I can't remember. What was that?
I'm so excited, something like that.
Oh
It's
yeah,
probably
yeah,
Switches.
yeah, yeah.
It was terrible. Don't do that shit no more. Other than that, once the music stopped, you're able to focus on the match. It was a good match.
No, once they started playing when the bodies hit the floor, that was all right. Yeah, I like that. Now they didn't have to play it 3 times or 4 times or whatever it was. Now the fact that they chained Willow to the fucking ring post through her ear hole was awesome. I'm sorry, I haven't seen that ever, ever.
I
You
think they
know,
did it again to Hardy on WCW.
did they?
Yeah, I told you that last night. I think it was a feud against
Oh yeah, Jeff Hardy. Yeah, you're right.
yeah.
But I think it was TNA maybe, not WCW.
No, it was WCW. Absolutely
Oh, was it?
100%.
No, because Jeff never wrestled for WCW.
The Hardy Boys?
Hardy Boys never wrestled for WCW.
I mean, not WCW, WWE. My bad.
All
Yeah,
right.
you had me think about WCW. Yeah, WWE.
All right. Oh, speaking of which, last night just screamed of
WCW.
WCW.
And not
Yep,
the
just
good times
screamed
of
it.
WCW.
Yeah.
There was parts of it That reminded me of the days of WCW still putting on good pay-per-views, but their product was going downhill.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, ultimately Kenny Omega and crew got the pin. Swerve really looked good last night, and his
That entrance was great.
yeah, oh yeah, and his I can't remember his
Chris
final move
Nana.
with the
Oh,
kick to
yeah,
the head.
yeah.
That is bar none one of the best kicks.
Yep, I agree. The only thing I'm gonna be negative about Spurs entrance is if you could have an entrance like that, if you're gonna look like kind of a monster, right? With the whole aura type of thing. When you have Chris Nana, and I love Chris Nana, him dancing makes me laugh. Don't get me wrong. But if you're gonna have an entrance like that, you cannot have Prince Nana coming out dancing. It takes away from that entrance. Have Prince Nana with you, but just have him walking out behind you.
Right, right. No, Nana's awesome. But
Yeah,
yeah, it did take a lot away. You come out looking like a badass, and then you got this circus monkey behind you, you
right.
know, dancing. And I don't mean that in a derogatory term. Sorry. Um,
You just got us canceled.
yeah, I know, right?
For all you sensitive people, he literally meant the circus. They have monkeys, they dance. He was not talking about anything else besides that. So
Nope,
fuck
absolutely
that.
not. Absolutely not. But yeah, it took a lot away from it because you got this imposing figure looking like an imposing figure, and then you got the clown jester behind him.
Right.
I agree with you. Nana is awesome, and his dancing makes me
Oh my
laugh.
god, I love him. I love Prince Nana. Um, when Swerve is coming out, his normal entrance, I think it adds a lot to it. It really does. Uh, I can't tell you how much I love Prince Nana. Um, but again, that was a very different entrance for Swerve, who, by the way, and Mark can tell you, Swerve's one of my favorite wrestlers in AEW. Actually, period, in the industry. One of them. That was a different one. So because Swerve changed how he came out and that look, Prince Nana should have been on board with that as well.
Right, right. Nonetheless, it was a good match. But yeah, there were parts of it that could have gone away, especially the Bucks prelude coming to the ring. I mean, and the way they dressed was just ridiculous. They look like Little Lord Fauntleroy, you know.
Yeah. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. There are some spots that I was like, holy shit,
Right.
great spots. And again, great match once they turn the fucking music off. Great
Yeah.
match. So,
All right. So next we go to Paragon versus Don Callis family. This match just kind of left me cold, and it had all the aspects of being a good match. It really did. You got Paragon, who consists of Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and I don't know, the eighth grade student teacher. Oh, Roderick
Mark
Strong.
Strong.
These guys are all solid wrestlers. You know. Then you got Don Callis' group of God. Now all the names are leaving me. Riley. No, it's not.
Kyle Fletcher.
Kyle Fletcher. Yep. Um, I forgot the Asian guy's name. Lord help me.
Yeah, it's
Katesha.
yeah, Katasha. Yep.
Um, and then Josh
Anderson, is it?
Allen. I thought, but I don't know.
Alexandra.
Alexander. Yep. Again, all solid wrestlers. All solid wrestlers. And this could have been a wrestling clinic, but it just wasn't.
Yeah, you remember earlier I said what match was it? I said it was one of my least favorite matches of the night.
FTR.
Yeah, the FTR. Um my least favorite match of the night was absolutely this one. And I tell you, I think why it left us cold because they all of those guys are great, great professional wrestlers. I think that they are future Hall of Famers. I really do. I think the problem is that we have a hard time accepting the fact that Adam Cole and his guys are baby faces. These guys are meant to be heels. They look like heels. Um, so I think because of that, they were just paired with the wrong guys to be in the ring with, and vice versa with Don Callis. They're heels. They should be heels. They also was paired, with the wrong guys. They should have been not together wrestling. They each should have had matches with other baby faces. Again, Adam Cole and his group should be heels.
You know, looking back on Adam Cole's group, and it's pretty much the same group that was in NXT with the minus of Bobby Fish. Um, these guys were like the new age Four Horsemen in NXT to me.
Mhm.
You know, they had the same swagger. You know, they had the same ability. You know, now nobody will ever replace Four Horsemen in my opinion, but these guys were definitely the current version of the Four Horsemen in NXT, and to see them at the level they're at now is kind of like a shame.
Right,
You know,
right.
um,
Yeah.
what Adam Cole's like a Daniel Garcia where he could stand up to gain 15, 20 pounds of beef.
Look, I tell you where Adam Cole's career went down a path that it should have never gone down is when they paired him with MJF. As good as MJF is, as much as they came up with some great stuff together, lots of laughs. Um, when MJF came back after Adam Cole turned on him, MJF came back. Adam Cole was out with the injury. MJF turns heel for no reason.
Yeah, that really kind of derailed
Adam
everything.
Adam Cole came back as a babyface whenever his injury when he left was a heel, and they had to explain away why Adam Cole turned to MJF in a way that would make him still seem like a babyface. All of that shit that happened, I think, took away a lot of steam from both MJF and Adam Cole because the crowd, they still pop or they still boo, but not like they used to. They got a little cold on these guys. And I think the mishandling and creative of all of that really hurt both of them.
I almost think that MGF and Adam Cole should pair back together. And to be honest, when it does happen, and it will happen, that they have a falling out with the Heart Syndicate, Adam Cole and his crew back at MGF would be a good rebound.
Well, I tell you what, MGF definitely would look better at Adam Cole's crew because last night when the Hurt Syndicate came out all black, and then MJF comes out in a blue suit. As much as I love that color, as much as I think he looked nice, at the same time, it took away from the Hurt Syndicate and that aura of we're coming out to fuck you up, right?
Right, right. No different
MJF
than
at
Nana and Swerve.
right. MJF should have came out in black, in a black
Right.
suit.
Yeah, but he's never worn a black suit. Oh wait, no, I take that back. Him and Chris Jericho did a skit
Yeah.
where he had a
Yep.
black suit.
Yep. Yep. You know what? You're in the storyline with these guys. You have to look the part. And
Right.
MJF looked like the nerdy kid who's following the popular kids around, even though the popular kids don't want him there. That's
You
exactly
know,
what he looks like.
but I gotta say his suit looked better than Sammy Guevara's suit on
Absolutely.
Dynamite because Sammy Guevara's suit looked like something from the 1970s Kmart rack.
Now, let me say this though. Maybe that's what they want MJF to look like. That nerdy kid that just wants the attention from the popular badass guys, right?
Could
Maybe
be.
that's why they had him look differently because it's already planting the seeds of MJF getting on the Hurt Syndicate's nerves, and then they went up turning on him.
Yeah, but you saw parts of that last night, and then all of a sudden Bobby and him were like
Yeah,
buddy buddy.
and this is what didn't make sense about that. This is what didn't make sense. The whole thing was because MJF kept on trying to give them his ring to knock out their opponents, right? Dustin and Sammy. And Bobby Lashley, nope, nope, nope. Then finally he said nope again. And then all of a sudden he smiles, boom, arm around him. But why? He didn't give him the ring at that point. It wasn't like Bobby Lashley was saying, give me that ring, I accept it. He still didn't take the ring, which
Right.
made that stupid. It made no sense.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you're a heel and you go out to hurt people, why would you not take that big rock and punch somebody?
Right. But the thing is that why are you now, after being annoyed with MJF during a match, while the match is still happening, you decide that you're not anymore, you give him the face, and not take the ring? Is a point
Right.
that he still didn't take the ring, even though he went from being annoyed to, oh, you my boy. That was dumb.
Right. But you're talking Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley doesn't need a foreign object to knock somebody out.
I
I,
completely agree with you,
but
but
yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
where they were going made no sense.
Yeah,
I
you're
don't
right.
know if that was an oops. Bobby Lashley was supposed to take. I don't know what happened, but that part was stupid.
Yeah.
Match still good. That part stupid.
Yeah. All right. So then we finally end up with Paige versus Osprey.
Holy goddamn shit! What a fucking match.
Yep, it was, and there was a lot of counters, a lot of spectacular counters in this match. And you're right, Adam Page probably looked better than he has in 2 years. You know,
Yep.
and
For me, the counter of the night. You're going to agree with me. Was Adam Page going over the ropes to do the lariat, and Osprey literally going over his arm while holding his arm and putting him in that move that he did. Man, that was wow.
yep. Now
Wow.
you could tell last night we were getting kind of bored with the whole thing here and there because we were on our phones. And
Somewhat times.
at that match, we both put our phones down. Like they commanded our full attention, just because it seemed like every other minute you're going, "Holy shit, holy
Yeah.
shit, holy shit!" And this was probably and Monet and Hayter had a great match, but this definitely was match of the night.
Up until this point, we both said it. We hate to admit it, but Hater and Monet match of the night until this match happened.
Right. And you were so
And
downtrodden from the Death Riders and the music. You're like, this pay per view just dropped to like a C minus. So this next match better carry it. And you brought it back to what, a B plus?
yeah, look, you guys, I'm being well behaved when I was talking about the match of the music because believe me, Mark can tell you, I was just pissed
You
because it
were
was
livid.
so stupid. And
You were
Mark kept on
livid.
saying, turn off the volume then. Well, no, because it would be even worse. um, but yeah, this match was so damn good. And as far as us being on phones, we're both paying attention to the show. I'm doing wrestling shit. I think I was in the middle of booking someone to come on the podcast. But yeah, the 2 minutes into this match, I'm like, phone down. Mark was the same way. It was damn good. Wow,
Yes,
what a
yes.
match! What a
And,
match!
and to be honest, it probably could be match of the year, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
I mean, as of right now, as it stands, I agree with you. Um, I was shocked by the end of the match, the fact that Adam Page won. Because I thought for sure that it was going to be Will Ospreay. But you know what? I like that. I like when I think that someone is definitely going to win this match, and that doesn't happen. That means that they did their job as
right.
far as me being a wrestling fan. Now, this is my complaint though. Right now, they made me a little excited for Dynamite on Wednesday to see what's going to happen between Hangman and Adam Page, Moxley, and everything else, right? What my complaint is that although I'm excited for it, I know goddamn well, like every damn time Tony Khan or whoever is doing creative is going to drop the ball and we're going to have something flat on Wednesday. I'd be willing to put money on it. And I don't get it because, man, they have so much to work with. Dynamite
And
should be great.
How do you go from being so hot to so cold in 4 days?
Yeah,
3 days.
don't get it. Don't get it. Because, like you said, I definitely give this a B plus, 100%. B plus.
Yeah, I'd go B plus on this one.
Um, so we'll see. I really hope that Dynamite is good on Wednesday, and when we do the review on Thursday, we're excited, 100% excited about it. But that wraps up AEW's pay per view Double or Nothing. Before we go, I want to throw some names at you. Attila Khan, trained by Harley Race, Haku as well. Haku. Go watch this guy's matches. He looks like if um Abdullah the Butcher
And Bruiser
and
Brody.
Bruiser Brody had a kid together, this would be him. Guess what? June 4th, 6 o'clock on the podcast. Warren Wolfie. You guys will remember him from WWE. They were in the faction with The Rock. Um, who else was in there? The
I don't
faction with
recall.
The Rock. Damn it, hold on.
Wasn't Nation of Domination.
Yeah, Nation of Domination. Yep, yep. Towards the end, they were in there. They went on to be in TNA as tag team PG-13 and Disciples of the Church. That was their faction. Very popular. He's going to be on the show June 5th at 6 p.m. Jay Ego, Jerry Braggs, former WCW, WWE. He's going to be on the show the 9th. This is a big one, guys. Steve Stasiak. He has been the guy with the Road Warriors and so many other very, very established professional wrestlers. And the last one I'm going to talk about is a couple more. Darla Staggs, huge in the Cauliflower Alley Club. Very good friends with Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert. She's coming on to actually talk about the stuff that Dark Side of the Ring didn't actually talk about. She was interviewed for about 2 hours for this show. They only use her, what she said, about 45 seconds of it. So she's going to be on talking about that. And then there's one other person, American Giant, WCW. He tagged with Kevin Nash. Great guy, absolute great guy. And then on the 18th, Harley Race's son, Justin Race. This guy is incredible. I met him last weekend. We've been able to talk. I'm excited to have him on. And then this is what I was looking for, Barbara Goodish, who is the wife of
The late Bruiser Brody.
Brucey Brody. Yep. So I have so many great interviews coming up. But I do want to recognize this one other thing. On June 20th, our co-host, Bob Cook, is getting inducted into the Florida Hall of Fame. So excited for him. He absolutely deserves this. Congratulations, Bob Cook.
Even
Guys,
if he has the second best punch in the business.
I can't wait to Tuesday. Can't wait to Tuesday. That's where we're going to be on next. Matter of fact, enjoy the review of Monday Night Raw. Guys, please subscribe. That's only a few of the people that I have coming on this podcast as guests. They are great. Great. I think you guys will really, really enjoy my interviews, my one-on-one conversations. So again, subscribe to the podcast. Mark, I know you don't have nothing. You never have anything.
Nah, I'm kind of
Except
dull.
except for one thing. What you got to say?
Ring the damn bell.
Ring the damn bell, everybody. We will see you guys Tuesday at 7:30 with myself, the wrestling enthusiast Mark, George Strong, the best damn referee in the business, and of course, the
Bob
Hall
Cook,
of
the second
Famer,
punch.
the Hall of Famer, the Cooker, the number one punch, the best punch in the business, Bob Cook. Until then, guys, have a great day.